All right, guys, welcome. Happy Friday, and this is the weekend. This is the big giveaway weekend. Signed Justin Herbert jersey and signed Kyler Murray speed helmet this Sunday night football at halftime. I'm giving it away. To enter, guys, go to pristineauction.com and use promo code SWAGLION. That's it, guys. You can also DM me if you want information on Instagram at Fantasy Football Counselor. But I'm telling you, the giveaways are going to be ongoing. I've got a signed Alvin Kamara helmet coming your way, a Tua jersey, tons more stuff coming your way with Pristine Auction. Again, to enter, it's very simple. pristineauction.com. Sign up using code SWAGLION. You're in for all draws moving forward. All right, so let's get to the show, guys. We are talking about starts and sits for fantasy football week 7. Going to go over all the optimal plays. Going to go over the guys that have the tough matchup and some of my recommendations. Okay, guys, let's get to it. Starts and sits NFL week 7. Let's go. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm excited. It's week 7 already. I keep saying that, but I mean, it is just flying by. I mean, this season, it's such a ramp up to the season. When the season starts, it just goes. It flies. Like, the weeks go by so fast because we're so busy. And we've got that Monday night game and the Thursday night game that kind of keeps us in the loop for the week, and it just kind of, we look forward to those games and it just flies by. And Sunday's there, you're editing your lineup and away you go. So we're at week 7 now. It's going to be a tough week. So we're talking starts and sits. This is going to help you guys. It's going to give you all the optimal plays at each position so you guys can make a better educated decision on who to start and sit. Now, I want to go over something. It is a bye week. So these are some of the teams on bye week. Just note this: Buffalo, Dallas, Jacksonville, Chargers, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh on bye. This is huge. This is a terrible bye week, especially for my team, considering I've got Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, Justin Herbert, to name a few, and James Robinson. I mean, those are 4 solid players. And Adam Thielen. That's 5 of my studs not playing this week. I got to pull out a win. Even though I have depth, it's still tough when everybody's on bye week, especially these good players. So some honorable mentions that are going to be on bye this week: Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, Thielen, Jefferson, Zeke Elliott, right? It just keeps going. James Robinson. There's so many players that are on bye this week that are elite and really high fantasy relevant players. Again, just those quarterbacks I mentioned: Josh Allen, even Kirk Cousins, even. Then you've got Herbert, you've got Dak. It's just brutal. So it's a rough week. We gotta pound through it though. Okay, guys? If you are new to the channel, make sure you guys do hit subscribe if you're first time here. And of course, go to pristineauction.com. Use code SWAGLION. Get in on the draws. It's a Kyler Murray signed helmet. We're going to be giving it away. When we're giving it away, we're going to be giving it away at halftime during Sunday Night Football. Okay, guys? So make sure you guys tune into my Instagram at Fantasy Football Counselor. And again, to enter SWAGLION, all you got to do is enter that code at pristineauction.com. When you sign up, free to sign up. You're entered for all draws moving forward. All right, let's start off with the quarterback position here, guys. Here's the deal with quarterbacks, okay? Some of those studs like Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, they actually have a good matchup this week, okay? So that's a good thing. Sometimes you have these stud quarterbacks and they have a rough matchup. Like, for example, Lamar Jackson this week versus Cincy. A little bit of a tougher matchup. 6th hardest for his position. So let's go into the tough matchups. Lamar Jackson, tough matchup. Tom Brady, 9th hardest for his position versus Chicago. And Jalen Hurts, all relatively tough matchups. So if you're torn between, let's say, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, for example, right? Aaron Rodgers does have the better matchup. Just so you make that right decision. These are the tougher matchup guys. Okay, Mac Jones, believe it or not, the secondary, the Jets have been playing pretty decent. 7th hardest versus position. Something to note here. Mid-range matchups, Matt Stafford, definitely worth a start versus Detroit, but mid-range, easier matchups, guys. This is very important. Carson Wentz, coming off a hot week. Carson Wentz does have an easy matchup. Matt Ryan, I'm going to be starting him versus Miami. Jimmy G, Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, even though he's been relatively inconsistent, he does have an easy matchup versus Tampa Bay. Pat Mahomes, easy matchup. Ryan Tannehill and Aaron Rodgers, all easy matchups versus position. Again, this should help you guys with your starts and sits. Also for daily fantasy as well. If you're playing DraftKings and FanDuel, this might give you an advantage as well. Kyler Murray, 12th hardest versus position versus Houston, but he should be able to light it up for sure. Okay, guys? Moving on to running backs, the guys to consider starting. Again, Darrell Henderson, great matchup. I also like Alvin Kamara this week. He is playing Seattle. Great matchup. He is expensive in DFS, just so you know. Let me just take a look here. Who else is worth starting? Derrick Henry, obviously, not mid-range matchup here versus KC. The rush defense, not as bad as their pass defense. You got to start Derrick Henry. That's pretty obvious there. Jonathan Taylor coming off a couple hot weeks here. He's got a mid-range matchup versus San Fran, but he should still stay consistent, okay? Saquon Barkley, if he plays, I haven't heard much about him. Toughest, hardest matchup versus position, just so you know. Cornell Patterson, a lot of hype about him coming off that huge game a couple weeks ago. Safe game of 18 points last week as well. Playing Miami, very easy matchup. So if you're torn on starting him, go ahead and do that. Josh Jacobs, great matchup versus position, but he is very, very touchdown dependent. I know I own him. Very touchdown dependent, not getting it done on the ground, but getting it done in, near the red zone, okay? Chuba Hubbard, a must start again. 14 points last week, 21 the week before. The Chuba train is rolling through with Christian McCaffrey still banged up. I'm starting Chuba Hubbard if I can against the Giants. Definitely want to consider him, okay? A lot of questions about Darrell Williams having a 24-point game. Yes, he's going to get the red zone work. They're going to get near the end zone. They're going to get near the goal line. If that's the case, Darrell Williams is going to plug it in. He had 24 points last week. 12th hardest matchup versus position versus Tennessee. It's not going to be a walk in the park, but definitely a guy that's going to get the volume. Alex Collins has the 9th hardest matchup versus position, coming off a good game last week. He had over 100 yards rushing, and I believe he had a touchdown, 20 points. 9th hardest versus position versus the New Orleans Saints rush defense. If you got Alex Collins, it's very slim and trim this week at running back. If you factor in bye weeks and you factor in injuries, you got to start Alex Collins, okay? But a little bit of a tougher matchup, okay? Le'Veon Bell, Baltimore running backs in general, it's a slew of running backs, a disaster. I'm staying away from all those running backs. They're really just working a committee with Devontae Freeman. They're working a committee with Le'Veon Bell. It's a bit of a disaster there. They do have a tough matchup as well. It's not going to be a walk in the park, okay? A lot of people asking about Sony Michelle as well. It seems like Henderson has taken that job. Again, they do have a good matchup. I see Michelle maybe getting a touchdown, if anything. I see a star here saying that he was a little banged up. Henderson's the guy as of right now, but if you are desperate, Sony Michelle, check his health status. He does have an easy matchup. And that's pretty much it, guys. If you are desperate, he is available on waiver wires. Guys like Malcolm Brown, Salvon Ahmed, they are available on waiver wire, but again, very, very slim and trim at running back. You're going to notice that because I went to the waiver wire to see if there's any running backs available. It's really slim and trim, especially if you're in competitive leagues. Very hard to get good running backs, okay? And again, if you are desperate, you could roll the dice on a guy like Phillip Lindsay. I think he fumbled last week or the week before. He's been crap in the bed. But, Naheem Hines, if he's available, but they're not getting the volume to get you through your weeks, okay? But if you are desperate, there is some options there on waiver wire you may want to consider. Even I hope I pronounced this right. Romandre Stevenson had 15 points last week. Easy matchup there on the Patriots. Another option if he's available on the waiver wire. Stevenson from the Patriots. Wide receivers, guys, okay? Now, here's the deal with wide receivers. Studs have easy matchups. Tyreek Hill, easiest matchup versus position versus Tennessee. Davonte Adams, plug and play. These guys should be rock solid this week. Great matchups. Calvin Ridley coming back off that personal. I don't know if you guys saw my social media. I did a post for fun. Calvin Ridley was off for personal reasons 2 weeks ago. Then he had the bye week. Should be back this week. He does have an easy matchup. Second easiest first position at wide receiver versus Miami. Calvin Ridley doing a Pepsi commercial. It was a very corny commercial, very cheesy, very, very, very corny to say the least. And my question is, did Calvin really do this commercial during his personal time off or was it recorded before? I'd love to hear your feedback here in the comments. Calvin Ridley, though, easy matchup this week. I'm just picking at him. Maybe it was a personal reason he was off. Probably was. But I see a Pepsi commercial come off 2 weeks after he says that he was off for personal reasons. Not on the field, but doing Pepsi commercials. And I know they got to eat. I get it, but a little ridiculous. And you got to see it. It's pretty corny. All right, Houston wide receivers here. Cooks, easy matchup versus Arizona. Any other easy matchups? Deebo Samuel, another stud that's been red hot, coming off a bye week. easy matchup this week. So Debo Samuel's got easy versus Indy. What happened to Ayuk, guys? Everybody, the mainstream were telling you, Brandon Ayuk this, Brandon Ayuk that. He's done nothing. Brandon Ayuk has done absolutely nothing. He had 5 points last week, 3 the week before. Darnell Mooney, I like him. I'm going to be starting him. Great value in DFS as well, $4,600. Had a 16-point week last week. Been relatively consistent, outperforming Allen Robinson 3 weeks in a row. I mean, 2 weeks ago they were tied at 7 points, but 3 weeks ago he was ahead of him, and last week he was ahead of Allen Robinson. Darnell Mooney seems to be getting most of the volume there and a little bit more of the fantasy points in a relatively uncertain offense there when it comes to fantasy. Jalen Waddle, I mean, he had a good week last week, 29 points. Tua's job potentially hanging on the line here. A lot of talk about Deshaun Watson heading up in Miami. Something to consider here as Tua might want to play for his life here to stay on that team. But Jalen Waddle, great matchup. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, both great matchups. Seems like DJ Moore is obviously the primary target. Great matchup as well. Now, if you're asking about Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans, it's a crapshoot. It's like it's a roll of the dice. And Antonio Brown, beneficiary last time they played. Who's it going to be this week? They've got a relatively easy matchup. Something to consider, guys. Just think about it. I mean, it's going to be a roll of dice, whoever you start. It's kind of like I got a 1 in 3 chance that my guy goes off. Also, Davonte Smith here. Tough matchups now. Davonte Smith, fourth hardest versus position, coming off a very, very slow week the last time he played. Guys like Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers. I think he got his first touchdown recently. Versus the Jets. Tough matchup, believe it or not, versus their secondary. Then you got DeAndre Hopkins, who's kind of been, he's been safe, but his target share significantly dropped with Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore, and all the other options there. But they all got a tough matchup. Fifth hardest versus position against Houston's secondary, believe it or not. And I hate that offense because they spread the ball around. It's a disaster for fantasy. Jamar Chase, sixth hardest matchup versus position versus Baltimore. Just be aware, you got to start Jamar Chase, but he's got it in tough. Renfro, Ruggs got it in tough as well. And Terry McLaurin, who's coming off 2 mediocre under 10-point weeks versus Green Bay, eighth hardest matchup versus position. Cooper Kupp, it may seem obvious to start him this week. You definitely have to, coming off a 37-point amazing game. He actually has the ninth hardest matchup versus position on paper, okay? Keep that in mind there. Let's move on here to tight ends. With tight ends, start your best tight end. It's very thin and trim at tight end here. If you've got a good tight end, if he's been performing very well, start him. Darren Waller, great matchup. Hunter Henry, great matchup. Zach Ertz, great matchup. New offense, so for Zach Ertz, right? Something to be cautious. Too many options there. I don't know if he's going to get the ball much, but if he does, it's probably going to be a touchdown, but it's going to be sporadic. Travis Kelsey, tough matchup versus position, believe it or not, versus Tennessee. They play tight ends tough. Him and Mark Andrews both have tough matchups, but you got to start him. Rob Gronkowski, I think he's still banged up. Be cautious with him. Ricky Seals-Jones having a 16-point game last week. Got a mid-range matchup this week. And, Mo Alley Cox, been pretty solid. Probably a guy you could pick up off waiver wire. Relatively hard matchup, sixth hardest versus position, but he's been putting up 8 to 10 points a game. So, again, guys, up to you guys. You guys need to figure out which tight end has been consistent and make sure you start that tight end, okay, guys? Again, it's very, very uncertain, and it's very, very slim and trim at this position. So you want to start, typically you're rotating 1 or 2 guys on your team anyway for year long. Start the most consistent one and take a look at the matchups. And like I said, some of those studs, Darren Waller, good matchup. Kyle Pitts, he's got a mid-range matchup. I like him. Coming off that breakout week, you got to start him as well. Playing Miami. It's a relatively easy matchup. Okay, guys? Robert Tonyan, very inconsistent. Mike Gesicki, mid-range matchup. Tyler Higbee, mid-range matchup. And like I said, Mark Andrews. Who else was it that's got tough? Mark Andrews, Travis Kelsey, relatively tough matchups, but you got to start them based on talent. Let's take a quick look at defense if you're looking at streaming defenses, because, again, defenses put up a lot of points. I personally own the Rams and Steelers, and the Rams have been doing pretty well, and they are the defense to start this week if you own them. Most likely not available on waiver wire, but they're playing Detroit. Love the matchup. Other defenses to consider streaming if they're available. Jets versus New England could be an option. Dolphins versus Atlanta, but again, Matt Ryan could light it up, but it could be a good matchup. Dolphins could step up. Cardinals versus Houston, a must-start defense for sure. Falcons versus Miami because of the uncertainty of that offense. Panthers versus Giants, like I said, Rams versus Detroit, and Buccaneers, believe it or not, versus Chicago. Also great matchups. Titans versus KC, that's kind of a mid-range matchup, but you never know. Pat Mahomes was actually coming off to a slow start last week and then turned it up. Which Pat Mahomes are you going to get? Are you going to get first half Mahomes from last week or second half Mahomes? Probably second half Mahomes, But if you're a desperate, maybe the Titans as a defense, maybe the Chiefs as a defense, right? Either one of those. A lot of uncertainty in that matchup. All right, guys? Starts and sits, guys. You got to start the right person. Look for consistency. And if you're torn between two players, look back 3 weeks. How consistent were they? What's the matchup like? Take a look at all those variables, guys, going into this week 7. You should know who your starters are and make sure you guys cover yourself. It's a crazy, crazy bye week. A lot of studs are going to be sitting this NFL week 7. If you're new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe, follow on Insta, and remember, pristineauction.com. Use promo code SWAGLION. Sign up. You're entered for all draws moving forward, including this giveaway on Sunday at halftime. Kyler Murray signed helmet and Justin Herbert signed jersey, authenticated. All right, guys, we'll talk soon. Subscribe, thumbs up. I'm out.